Alright, boys, so I was told that one of the Valentine servant got a strengthening quest or something like that. I'm kinda hoping maybe it's Caren. I'm trying to think, who is another, like, Valentine servant that I would like to get a buff? MHX Alter, actually, if it was MHX Alter, that would be pretty sweet, because even though I really, like, simp really hard for MHX Alter, right, because I do think she's legitimately a very, very strong, I almost said OTK because I've been playing so much Yu-Gi-Oh! Master Duel, but is a servant that can easily burst down bosses. Hey, man, it happens when you're mixing up your games, but, I would really like her to get, like, one more buff, because I think if she just gets, like, one more buff, as minuscule or as minor as it might be, I feel like that's just kind of, like, the last thing people need to kind of understand how good she is, or to kind of recognize that she's a very powerful servant, so I'm hoping for that. Semiramis could also use a buff, because Semiramis, when we had the banner over here, actually, can I pull it up over here? I think I can. Instead of just trying to guess and trying to remember who the servants are. But, like, Semiramis is, like, out of this batch of servants, is definitely the one that's a bit lackluster in comparison. She's not bad by any stretch of the imagination. It's just that compared to the others, she doesn't really hold up to them, right? Like, Nero Bride being a mini Castoria is insanely valuable, as to, you could use her as a DPS or as a support type servant for quick or art servants, right, to help them loop, which is insanely valuable. MHX Alter is just one of the best boss killing servants in the game, right? She just bursts bosses down, especially after getting her special damage mod, with just insane efficacy. And then you have, you know, Murasaki over here, who's very good as, like, kind of like a control boss killing servant, because she's good at doing big damage against demonic servants, but she also provides a lot of utility and control to the party, especially with her NP. And then say, I don't really think she needs a buff, but she could get one, right? If they wanted to, like, buff her up a little bit, like maybe give her a buff to her battery or something, give her an NP gain buff, so maybe she can loop just a little bit easier. But I don't know, maybe Caren or Semiramis. It's just, if Caren gets the buff, she's the most recent one here, and she's the one that didn't go on a raid up. Although that kind of scares me. Maybe it is Caren that got the buff. Maybe that is what it's going to be. So hopefully not. Now let me go back. Look in the event info, right? All right, servant strengthen. Okay, well, it is Caren. Well, let's see what it is. That's a chaotic buff. Okay, hold on. Can I pull up her page? Caren, hello. I'm assuming it's the NP buff. God, look at how many passives Caren has. She's so insane. Okay, so it's a buff to her NP. Originally, if you're not aware, maybe you just forgot because it's been a fat minute since Caren came out, and usually a few weeks to a month after a servant comes out, people just completely forget that they even came out. Like, it's pretty insane. Like, Crane comes out, she's a dummy, insane servant, people forget about her. Ibuki Doji comes out, she's insane, people forget about her. Then you have Van Gogh, who comes out, completely insane, people forget about her. Caren comes out, completely insane, people forget about her. So, if you maybe forgot, has a very insanely OP NP, where she does damage to all enemies, reduces all of their quick resistance by 20% for 3 turns, hits them with buff block, which is insanely good. You guys know that I really like it when servants have that skill, because it makes them insanely good for very difficult content, because it's a very difficult bosses that you want to neg their buffs. And then she also increases her own NP damage by 10%. Honestly, if they made this proc first, it would go a long way in helping her out, but what do? They buffed the damage, and they gave her a 150% flat damage mod against enemies with chaotic alignments. And because of her class up here, if you guys are not aware, she's a ruler, you can pretty much just bring her to anything anyway. There's not a whole lot of Avengers that she has to worry about. You have Mao Nobu, Jolter. Okay, those are actually... Whoa, hey, yo, wait, never mind, I was counting all the Avengers are in here, but aside from, you know, these handful of servants, you can still bring her to any of these fights, and she'll do exceptionally well. It's also worth noting that BB's in here, so this means, I don't know, if they bring back BB as some boss fight, you can just have Caren go absolutely ham taro on her and just completely obliterate her. It also means she's going to be very good against some of these berserkers, which, you know, like people like Atalanta Alter, and, you know, I mean, Ku Alter's not really a boss in the story. She's more of a boss than he is because he's in America, but you guys get what I'm saying. Like, some of these servants are bosses in, you know, harder story modes. I know Raiko pops up a few times as a boss, you know, she can be very good for that. So this is a pretty good buff for her. You know, she can actually make some use of it. I think it literally, this is not a buff for Caren, but this is just a buff for everyone to be like, hey man, have you ever struggled fighting BB in any sort of capacity? Well, congratulations. We're going to give you a servant that literally just takes BB, suplexes her into a different dimension, and we just call it a day there. Honestly, though, like, I'm still surprised that they chose to buff her. I'm also surprised they didn't make this proc first. I mean, I understand this gives her more damage, but giving her this procking first would also just be really nice when she's fighting people that aren't chaotic alignment, because while this is a decent chunk of servants, it's still like a little limited, right? When compared to like say the people that can just hit like all good servants and stuff like that. So like while it is good, I'm not complaining. I would have liked this for those moments when she didn't have the opportunity to fight someone that has the chaotic alignment. So that's a little disappointing, but truth be told, it's probably the only thing they really could have buffed on Caren, because everything Caren has is like pretty dang strong. Like she's a pretty she's a pretty OP servant. Like I don't know, maybe they could have buffed that up to 30%, but like she already just does so much. Like just look, like her skills are just chock full of just good effects all over the place. Like she's pretty dummy insane, bro. Like she's pretty stupid. So I'm surprised they went with Caren again. Like when you have these other servants over here, I'm surprised they went so light, because usually when we have these like bigger events, and I'd consider Valentine's to be a bit of a bigger event, right? It's something we all kind of look forward to during the year. I mean, they even gave us this insanely hype banner over here. I'm surprised they didn't buff numerous servants at once. I'm surprised that they didn't, especially I'm more disappointed for someone like Semiramis, because I really felt like she could have used a buff, because if we look at Semiramis, it's like she's not bad, right? Like this is so much better because of a pen skills, right? This is really good because it synergizes with her third skill over here. Having 8 stars really isn't a big deal. Like if you have anybody that has like a starting charge CE or something, you should be absolutely fine. This is OP if you're in a setup that has numerous buster servants that can also abuse this alongside Semiramis. This is pretty solid as well, because it's just going to make her a bit more consistent with her triple arts deck, and then it's something that's greatly needed with her NP gain stack. This is actually really interesting as well, the whole double summon thing. And then her NP is also just really solid as well. This probably was an odd thing to give her. I don't really know why they gave that to her. I'm not really sure, because she doesn't give a buff to the party. So it's like, why do you like buff their buff removal resist? I just don't get it. I just don't understand. Like I'm honestly just a little confused, right? Like I don't know why. So she probably could have just used like, it's gonna suck because I always say, but I'm like, just maybe slapped a 20% battery on here, so then she has a real 50%, because there is a difference. You do want your servant to have a real one. We talk about having like a fake 50% battery all the time, but having the actual 50% one is just more valuable to have that innately, because it means you can keep using it, because it means that once Semiramis pops that quote-unquote 50% battery, she won't have it again. And it also means when she gets to the end of the farming nodes, usually what Koyanskaya wants you to do is to loop that skill again, so you can get that 50% on the wave 3, so you can kind of get it back again. But Semiramis won't be able to do that because she'll only have 30%. So it means you have to do a little bit of finagling, a little bit of tomfoolery to kind of make Semiramis work. So it is just more efficient, and it's just a bit easier to have the natty 50% battery. But yeah, I don't really know. Can you guys in the comments let me know, who did you guys want to see get buffed? Because honestly, like if you were to pin me down and be like, who'd you want to see get buffed, I'd be like probably Semiramis and MHX Alter. Because Semiramis needs it to kind of get up to the current power level, because again, as I'm just going to keep saying, she's not bad, she just is kind of starting to fall behind. And MHX Alter, while I think she's really good right now, I think she just kind of needs something so people kind of see how good she is. Like she just needs an additional thing to kind of draw attention back over to her. And then even Sei, I think, would have been a really good servant to give a buff to, just because Sei is very popular. A lot of people summon for Sei, a lot of people have her, and it's just like very good thing to give them that, that buff, so people kind of like feel like, oh yeah, my servant that I have is getting a buff. Kind of makes you feel special. You're happy when a servant that you own gets buffed. So I don't really know. I have mixed feelings about it. It's definitely a good buff for Caren, but should Caren have gotten the buff? I mean, it's good. It's definitely going to help her out a lot. It's going to make her more consistent just because her NP is going to be hitting harder because of the buff. And when she's fighting anybody that is chaotic, I mean, she's going to punt them into another dimension. But should she have gotten it over them, or could we have just given the 3 of them a buff, or even all of them a buff? I mean, that would have been insane. But when they drop insane buffs like that, when they like, we're buffing 5 servants, people go nuts, right? Because so many more servants like become increasingly more viable whenever they get those buffs. So I don't know. Just some food for thought, I guess. I don't know. This is definitely a bit of a weird thing to look at, but I do like doing these videos because like it's one of the few things I get to look at blind and kind of like look at live with you guys. Is like, oh yeah, like let's look at this live. I haven't got to see it yet because I don't stream at 4 in the morning whenever they do the live stream. So yeah, I mean, I like doing these videos. I'll continue to do them whenever they do these buffs, but I don't know, bit of a mixed feeling on it. But yeah, with that being said, I will see you guys in the next one. Peace late, guys.